Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said on Tuesday, after a meeting in Paris with French President Emmanuel Macron, that political leaders in Europe and beyond have given her their full support for the integrity of international borders. The Danish Prime Minister's comments are a reference to US President Donald Trump's announcement that he wants to take control of Greenland, an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. On Tuesday, Frederiksen began a tour of Europe to seek support from her counterparts in the face of the US leader's ambitions. How do we interpret Trump's statements and Denmark's response? Well, to explain all of this, we're joined by Mattia Caniglia, geopolitical expert. Welcome, sir, to TVP World, and thank you for taking the time.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning to you. So, what are our initial comments on what Trump seems to be saying is that he wants to acquire Greenland, and is there a historic precedent for anything like this?
Well, actually, there is. The U.S. has tried to purchase Greenland before in the 50s, and yet again, Donald Trump, during his first presidential term, made a similar offer again to the government of Denmark. But I think it's important to say that although these statements from the president might seem irrational, there is a political logic behind. And first of all, these remarks about Greenland, they serve a domestic agenda because they project strength and reinforce the president's image as a deal maker and as a disruptor of international politics. And then, of course, there is the fact that these signals that we are back in the world to a more realist approach to global order, which is, if you want, embodied by a very famous quote by Thucydides, which is the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. And then, of course, there is a third element, which is statements like these, they also serve to signal to adversaries of the US, like China or Russia, that the US will protect its interests in the Arctic, which, by the way, is becoming a very contested space.
Understood. I want to come to that in just a minute, but it's quite interesting what you say about the statement actually intended to project power. Now, you know, we are used to Trump's rhetoric. He starts with something really quite outrageous, which then kind of translates into a bargaining tool, a transactional arrangement, which ends up with something very, very different. Do you think that's what's happening here?
I think when we're dealing with Donald Trump, and I think we should have learned this in the 4 years starting in 2016, is that this is a man that often, you know, in the US they say, play the man and not the ball. So during the game, and international politics is a game, we will find Donald Trump more often playing the man instead of playing the ball. Now, I think in Brussels, this has been understood, and there is a general consensus in Europe not to respond to every Trump provocation, to every Trump tweets, but actually to respond on what actually Trump does. Now, it's clear that the Danish Prime Minister had to embark on this trip to test the waters and to rally support because things have escalated and they have to be taken seriously. But I think we still have to see. I think at this point, Trump is signaling that there is an issue with Greenland. And in fact, on this, he is not wrong.
Understood. Okay, so what is so important about Greenland to Trump?
Well, so first of all, Greenland has an incredible strategic significance in the world that we live in today. It's a focal point for military and geopolitical interests. Just to name one thing, Greenland is fundamental for the NORAD shield. The NORAD shield is the North Atlantic Defense Shield that protects America, also from nuclear threats coming from Russia. Greenland is fundamental when it comes about international shipping because of the Arctic routes that are opening there. And of course, and this was also recognized by the European Union, it's fundamental for its natural resources. In the moment that we live in worldwide, access to raw materials, which Greenland is rich of, would be incredibly important. Now, the issue is that in Greenland, there is, in fact, a political problem. The independentist movement has been growing stronger.
That's independence from Denmark, correct?
Yes, okay. Independent from Denmark, which doesn't mean that the Greenland people would welcome being part of the United States. Actually, recent polls show that that would not be the case. But the fuel behind the growth of this independence movement has been mainly economic. So economic demands from Greenland towards Denmark. In reply to this, the Greenland government has mounted a campaign against what is being called Danish neocolonialism. And the problem is that although we have seen quite recently, actually, some investments from the Denmark government into the security presence and the security of Greenland, almost 2 billion euros, Denmark cannot provide the necessary investments. So it's more about, now, without saying that Trump is right, and that's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that the EU should have planned to multiply its investment and strengthen its influence in such strategic territories. But we did not. And this is a problem. There is no mention of Greenland in the Horizon EU Strategic Plan 2025-2027. There is no mention of Greenland in the EU Strategic Compass. And we're talking about the two main strategic documents that the EU has put out in the past four years.
Understood, but of course Greenland isn't a part of the European Union per se, is it? I mean, Denmark is, but Greenland is not. So perhaps one could question whether it should be in the EU's strategic documents. However, that said, do you believe, I mean, you know, there is already a military contingent, American military contingent in Greenland. Do you believe that Trump would use military force to actually invade the island?
Well, I'm not in the business of making predictions, but I would say that that's unlikely. Yes, I would say that that's unlikely. And if we will witness something like that, it will have huge repercussions into the stability of not only NATO, of course, but also the European Union. And for as much as this US administration represents a change of pace in many issues regarding international relations and the global order, I wouldn't say that this administration is ready to risk all US network of allied forces for Greenland at this point. But what I think is happening here is that Trump is signaling with a very strong diplomatic, but maybe undiplomatic language, that there is an issue there and that there is a need to find a new understanding about what to do with Greenland. And again, this is a signal, the last symptom, if you want, of a broader transformation. I mean, the post-Cold War global order is dissolving under our eyes and is challenged by hard power worldview, by great power competition, and by regional actors becoming more assertive. And as I was saying before, the Arctic is becoming a contested space, like many other spaces in the world today. Russia militarization of the Arctic is ongoing. China's Arctic belt and road ambitious plan has been put out. So really, this is the latest reminder that our world is shifting towards hard power dynamics and a more realist geopolitics, a world where power and security actually prevail over democracy. Now, this is something that the EU and EU actors, they need to understand in order to be able to counter what might come from hostile actors, but also from allies.
Understood. So Russia, China, and the US all strategically interested in Greenland, and the EU needs to get that in its proper perspective. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Caniglia, for joining us and sharing your analysis. Have a good day, sir.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye
Have a
now.
nice day.
You too. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.